Are you starting a migration from on-premise SharePoint to SharePoint Online? Here's 5 things you need to consider when planning this big move. Stay until the end where I cover some of the tools that'll help make this planning easier. Number 1. Not all sites are worthy. You're going to have very old content out there, so you need to assess what's even active in your environment. You're going to have maybe an old intranet, maybe some old department sites that aren't used anymore. You're going to need to look at this old content and see what's even worth moving. SharePoint tends to be a graveyard of sites. You'd be surprised at how many sites you've probably got right now that haven't even been touched in a year. People use these sites and then they'll forget about them. They don't bother to let anyone know that they're not used anymore. They just quit using them. And that's your problem as the administrator to deal with. Finding these abandoned sites is going to cut down a lot of the work that you're going to have to do as part of this migration. Number 2, which sites have customizations? When I say customizations, I mean things like workflows. Maybe it's SharePoint Designer workflows. Maybe it's Nintex workflows. If you do have SharePoint Designer workflows, now is definitely the time to start moving off of that stuff. Don't go to SharePoint Online with that. The 2010 workflows are already unsupported in SharePoint Online, and the 2013 workflows are going to be dying in 2026. Go ahead and start addressing that stuff now. Figure out your game plan for what workflows you have and what needs to be recreated and a better solution. The solution I'd recommend would be Power Automate. It comes as part of Microsoft 365. You're probably already licensed for it, and you'll enjoy that much better than SharePoint Designer workflows. Custom code. It was very common in the old days of SharePoint on-prem to use JavaScript libraries like SP services or use full trust solutions, the farm solutions that you would commonly see deployed, things that had a lot more access than what Microsoft will let you have in SharePoint Online. All of those things need to be identified, and you're going to need to have better products in their place, or to decide they are no longer needed. Maybe you've got custom changes to account for bad list design, like list view thresholds. I'll cover that after these items, so stick around for that. Info path is another thing that was very common in the on-premise days. It gave you great custom forms. It wasn't a great interface, in my opinion, but it worked. It got the job done. We've got better tools for that now in the cloud. Power Apps is what you want to be looking at for that. It gives you custom list forms, and it gives you something called Canvas apps, which are just standalone applications. So you get more than you had with InfoPath, and it's a much better design experience. Go through a tutorial on Power Apps, and I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. Number 3, which sites should be merged into Microsoft Teams sites, for instance. Look for sites used by multiple teams. Look at project sites. A lot of times those are great candidates to be converted into a Microsoft Teams site or a regular SharePoint team site. Look for the small sites that maybe only have a document library and that's it. They're not using any other part of SharePoint other than a document library. Those are easy targets to be merged with perhaps another site that team uses, and it's one less site collection for you to maintain. Since you're migrating, now is a good time to start cleaning all that mess up. And do me a favor, if you're getting value from this video, please click that thumbs up button down below. Number 4, flattening your sites. Subsites were very common in the on-prem days. Everybody was using them. A lot of times you'd build an intranet that way. Subsites are no longer recommended by Microsoft. Flat architectures are in and subsites are out. Many new Microsoft features only work on a flat architecture, and subsites won't be able to benefit from those features. So don't bring over your nested sites. Stay until the end where I'll cover some more of the features that aren't available in SharePoint Online, because those are very important to know about. Look for opportunities to network your sites into hubs so that you can keep them somewhat connected but keep everything still flat. Number 5, site templates used on your sites. Depending on what version you came from, you may have been using the Fab 40 templates or some other Microsoft templates that are just no longer supported. You've got a much smaller list of site templates to use now, and you're generally going to be using team sites, Teams sites, and communication sites. For more information on team sites, Teams sites, and communication sites, check out the video I did earlier up in the top right corner. So as a bonus, Some of the tools that you'll want to take a look at and possibly purchase would be SMAT. It's a tool from Microsoft. It's completely free, and it's a SharePoint migration assessment tool. It'll analyze your environment, and it'll tell you things that you may have a problem with or will have a problem with when you try to migrate that particular site. As far as moving content, you've got another free option from Microsoft here. It's the SharePoint migration tool. It's great for moving from on-premise sites to the cloud. I believe it also does file shares up to the cloud. So depending on what types of content you're moving, that's a great option to check out. It's basic, but it'll certainly get the job done. For more advanced cases or for more control over what you're doing, ShareGate is usually the standard tool I've seen in the industry for doing these things. It's a commercial product, but it does give you a lot of options for moving content around, both from on-premise to the cloud, plus also just from the cloud to the cloud. It's got reporting features and can help you maintain what you've got in the cloud. Some last points. List view thresholds are something that people would change a lot in the on-premise days. When people wouldn't fully understand how to properly design lists and libraries by using index columns, they would frequently hit the 5,000 item limit in SharePoint, and the quick fix for that for a lot of people was to change the web application to increase the list item threshold. So that's not an option anymore with SharePoint Online because we're using Microsoft's web servers, not our own. So you're going to have to address that now. It'll be much more difficult to try and do this in the cloud. So you need to identify those large lists and make sure that they are properly indexed, that they have proper views set up to filter on those indexed columns so that when you move that content to the cloud, you're not going to have any issues. And lastly, you need to look into what features are no longer available in SharePoint Online. Some of the common ones that you may be using, like mail-enabled libraries. They were great. Everybody loved those, and it allowed you to just send an email and drop files into a SharePoint library at the same time. But those types of things are no longer supported in SharePoint. Recrawling your environment with SharePoint Search was another thing we can do with on-premise SharePoint. We can no longer do that with SharePoint Online. A full crawl will occur every 7 days or so. It's really all dependent on the load in your tenant as to how often it'll crawl. But Microsoft says it's about every 7 days. There's some other things like custom site definitions that are no longer supported. So definitely check out the list of what's no longer supported in SharePoint Online. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this.